All right, let's just dive right in. Picture this, a company starting out in a tiny, cramped garage with just a handful of people. A company that sold absolutely nothing more than books. No supermarkets, no streaming platforms, no smart speakers in your kitchen, and definitely no cloud computing or billion-dollar logistics networks. Just books. Well, welcome to this explainer, where we are going to peel back the layers of Amazon. We're going to reveal the hidden philosophies that turned a scrappy little garage startup into a literal trillion-dollar tech empire. Because, this isn't just a story about selling products online. It's really about a business philosophy that completely changed the face of modern commerce.
I mean, just look at the sheer unprecedented scale of this transformation. Back in 1994, their headquarters was literally a rented house. To save a few bucks, employees were actually building their own desks out of cheap wooden doors. Every single dollar mattered, and the team was sitting on the floor, packing books by hand. Now, flash forward to today. This same exact entity delivers millions of packages every single day. It powers a massive chunk of the entire internet through cloud computing. It's designing artificial intelligence and building literal warehouse robots. To understand how in the world we get from wooden door desks to AI and satellites, we have to decode their evolutionary blueprint.
So here's the blueprint of an empire we'll be decoding today. We've got 6 distinct phases. The bold bookstore gamble, surviving the dot-com crash, the customer obsession philosophy, building the hidden engines, challenges of an empire, and finally, the next trillion-dollar frontier. Let's get right into it.
Phase 1, the bold bookstore gamble, and betting on the internet.
Every great company starts with a big idea, right? But Amazon actually started with a prediction. Back in the early 90s, Jeff Bezos walked away from a highly secure, incredibly lucrative career at a Wall Street investment firm called D.E. Shaw. By all standard metrics, the guy had already made it, but he decided to risk the full shebang, drive all the way across the United States to Seattle, and start an internet company. Why? Because he stumbled onto a single, staggering statistic. 2,000%. That was the astonishing annual growth rate of internet usage at the time. To him, this wasn't just some passing trend. It was a total revolution. The question wasn't if the internet would change things, but how. So he made a list of products to sell online and quickly realized books were the absolute perfect catalyst. Think about it. A physical bookstore is heavily limited by shelf space, but an online bookstore, it could offer an infinite catalog of millions of titles. It was a really simple idea, but the risk of giving up a cushy Wall Street career for a 2,000% growth statistic was massive.
Moving on to Phase 2, surviving the dot-com crash. And wow, this was a literal trial by fire.
So, as Amazon was expanding rapidly in the late 90s, their expenses were just absolutely soaring. They were building out these massive warehouses and hiring incredibly fast, but they weren't actually making money. To a lot of traditional investors, this looked completely reckless, which earned the company the pretty brutal nickname Amazon.bomb. Critics were certain it would inevitably collapse. And you can see how the chaos builds here. They launch in July 1995, orders are pouring in, but then disaster strikes in 2000. The dot-com bubble bursts. Billions of dollars practically vanish from the stock market overnight, and hundreds of internet companies go belly up. Amazon's stock price plummeted, and financial analysts were literally predicting bankruptcy. But then, in 2001, right amidst the rubble of the crash, Amazon reported its very first profitable quarter. They didn't just survive, they were vindicated. But how on earth did they pull through when so many others completely vanished?
Well, this quote right here is the answer. Will this create long-term value? See, while all their panicked competitors were desperately cutting costs and abandoning their grand visions just to satisfy short-term investors, Amazon stayed remarkably disciplined. Bezos used this one guiding question to keep everyone hyper-focused on building real, lasting infrastructure, like actual warehouses, rock-solid technology, and genuine relationships with customers. They completely refused to sacrifice their long-term future for short-term approval, and ultimately, that credibility is what saved them.
All right, Phase 3, the customer obsession philosophy. This is all about removing friction.
Once they made it through that crash, Bezos made it his mission to make Amazon the most customer-centric company on Earth, bar none. While other businesses were obsessing over how to beat their competitors, Amazon was obsessing over how to make shopping easier for us, the customers, by relentlessly removing friction. It's funny, because features we totally take for granted today were super controversial at the time. Like honest customer reviews. Other retailers were absolutely terrified of negative feedback on their own sites, but Bezos knew that honesty built long-term trust. Then you have personalized data recommendations, which made shopping incredibly fast and tailored to you. And then, in 2005, came the ultimate friction remover, Amazon Prime. Critics thought it was absurd to ask people to pay an annual subscription just for faster shipping, but Prime wasn't just about shipping, really. It fundamentally changed how we behave as shoppers by completely removing the friction of calculating delivery costs every time you buy something. Couple that with constantly optimized delivery routes that shave shipping times from days down to hours, and man, you have built an absolute loyalty machine.
Phase 4. Building the hidden engines, specifically the marketplace and AWS.
These hidden engines fundamentally transformed Amazon from a basic first-party retailer into a massive global technological platform. So in the year 2000, Amazon made a pivot that essentially changed its destiny forever, transitioning from a traditional retailer to an infinite digital marketplace. Bezos basically asked, hey, what if anyone could sell on Amazon? And just like that, they opened their doors to third-party sellers. Suddenly, you had small independent businesses and huge global brands listing their products right alongside Amazon's own inventory. Amazon no longer had to take on all the inventory risk themselves, yet their catalog just exploded. They quickly followed this up with FBA, Fulfillment by Amazon. This allowed small businesses to actually use Amazon's massive warehouses and logistics network to pack and ship their orders. It gave everyday sellers unbelievable logistical superpower, and of course, it gave Amazon a cut of the whole operation.
Now, brace yourself, because this next part is a massive plot twist. Behind the scenes, Amazon's own software engineers were really struggling. Building the back-end infrastructure for their rapidly growing store was taking weeks, sometimes months. They realized, actually, if we are having this massive headache, pretty much everyone else in the tech world is too. And boom, this birthed Amazon Web Services, or AWS. Before AWS, if you wanted to launch a startup, you had to buy insanely expensive physical servers, maintain huge data centers, and hire massive IT teams. But after AWS, companies could literally just rent computing power over the internet. You click a button and you get more storage. Need to handle millions of new users overnight? You scale instantly. AWS completely revolutionized how both scrappy startups and Fortune 500 giants build software today.
And AWS is absolutely crucial, mainly because of the margins. To put it into perspective, the retail business, for all of its massive, mind-boggling scale, operates on very, very thin profit margins. But AWS, it quietly became this high-margin financial engine in the background. Historically, it generated huge operating margins, and those massive profits are exactly what funded Amazon's grandest, most ambitious long-term bets across logistics, artificial intelligence, and entertainment.
But here's the catch. To fund that kind of future, you have to be willing to fail in the present. I mean, most companies would completely retreat after a massive, highly publicized flop like the Fire Phone. But Amazon, they just view failure as the required cost of admission for massive, industry-shifting success. That exact relentless culture of experimentation is what gave us the Kindle, which completely revolutionized how we read, and Alexa, which brought voice-controlled smart ecosystems right into millions of homes. You simply do not get those huge ecosystem wins without stomaching some pretty spectacular failures along the way.
Which brings us to Phase 5, Challenges of an Empire, and Navigating Scale.
Because, let's be real, when you become one of the most powerful companies on Earth, your sheer size naturally creates entirely new, massive hurdles. Today, Amazon is navigating intense regulatory scrutiny globally over monopoly concerns, their marketplace practices, and exactly how third-party sellers are treated on the platform. On top of that, they are battling fierce competition from Walmart's massive e-commerce investments in the retail space, while simultaneously going toe-to-toe with absolute giants like Microsoft and Google in the cloud computing sector. And fundamentally, managing a workforce of over 1 million people brings very intense, ongoing scrutiny regarding warehouse conditions, labor practices, and the immense pressure of meeting our ever-increasing demands for faster delivery speeds. These are the highly complex, inevitable realities of operating a business at an unprecedented global scale.
And finally, Phase 6, the next trillion-dollar frontier.
For most companies, dominating global e-commerce and cloud computing would absolutely be the finish line. But for Amazon, that's just the baseline. Their trademark long-term planning is already setting up the entire next decade. They are actively planting their flags in the future by pouring massive resources into generative AI, positioning AWS as the foundational infrastructure for the entire global AI race. They're implementing incredibly advanced fulfillment robotics to make warehouses even more efficient. They are pushing hard into healthcare disruption, aiming to simplify how we access medicines and digital support. Plus, they've quietly built a high-growth advertising business leveraging all that shopper data. And they're investing heavily in sustainability, think electric delivery vehicles, and huge renewable energy projects, which isn't just for the environment, but a strategic move to reduce long-term operating costs. They literally never treat their current success as the finish line.
So that leaves us with one final pivotal question. Can Amazon actually continue reinventing itself?
From a cramped garage with wooden doors for desks, to an infinite digital marketplace, to the absolute engine of the cloud, and now venturing deep into the realms of AI and advanced robotics. The core theme of their entire blueprint is that in business, today's dominant market leader is always just one major innovation away from becoming tomorrow's competition. They've successfully reinvented themselves for 3 decades now, but as the scale gets larger and the challenges get much heavier, the ultimate test is whether that evolution engine can keep running. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this helped to code the blueprint of an empire for you. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.
If you like this video, like, share, and subscribe to Wealth Decoded for more of our business, finance, and tech explainers. Turn on the bell to get notified when a new video is uploaded. Thank you for watching, and we will see you all in the next one.